Jesus is Lord. And he was such a nice Jewish boy. Jesus changed my life. And he's still in the life-changing
Our lives
business.
were both in the tank, heading for disaster.
The rules have changed when we proclaim Messiah. Because real Jews don't believe in Jesus. Well, God says the opposite.
I am still Jewish.
Good.
That a pair of Jews beats a royal flush. Shalom and welcome to CrossTalk. My name is Randy Weiss. We're here today with Jeffrey D. Miller, and wow, good to have you with us again, man.
Yeah, well, Randy, it's such a blessing for me to be able to sit here and ask you about how you made the tremendous transition from being deep, headlong into the worldly ways of drugs and sex and etc., rock and roll music. Not that rock and roll is bad, but the kind you were in was bad. And you, it's a blessing for me to help your viewers see what God did in your life. You were just messed up.
I met a guy at this hostel, and Jersey Joe, I think he called himself, and he was a heroin addict. And we got to be friends, and I said, hey, ever get around Midwest, come and look me up. And I gave him my address. Well, lo and behold, he got home before I did. And I was living with some other untoward people like myself. Birds of a feather go to hell together unless unless something changes radically.
Yes, amen.
Anyways, he came in and he told them, Randy said it was okay to come see him, and they had the keys to my car. I left my Volkswagen there, and so they gave him the keys to my car, and he's driving around in my Volkswagen, and he left the car, but he left before I got back to town. I mean, because I went across the rest of the way to Canada and came down the East Coast. He just ended up back in the States. And okay, so I get back, see my friends, I go take my car, and I need gas. Now, in a Volkswagen, you put the gas where the engine's supposed to be. Yeah. And I open up the hood to go get the gas, and there's heroin paraphernalia sitting right there. And it's like, what is happening? I'm going to go to jail. Yeah. It ain't my dope.
Yeah, right.
I was indignant.
Yes.
I wouldn't have done anything that stupid. Now, I used to deal drugs out of this car.
Right.
It's a moving billboard for prison, but I thought I could get away with it. But I was so indignant. There's heroin stuff in my car, and I didn't put it there, and I didn't know. Well, I come back to the apartment later that day, and what do I find? We had a great big Labrador dog that he had dumped all over the apartment. It was awful. It was
disgusting.
But that wasn't even the bad part. My roomies were cooking dope. They were drying 1-2 kilos of marijuana in the oven. Mm-hmm. Windows open.
So smells going on
all over the place, and I'm indignant. We should know better.
Yes.
It wasn't that there was anything wrong with the behavior.
It's the way you're doing it.
It's going to get caught.
Yeah. Right.
And now I'm terrified because I really figure everybody in the neighborhood has smelled it. The police are already on the way. That's where I live. What did I do? I called my dad. I said, Dad, I need help. Can I come home? He said, yeah. I said, could you come and get me? I ain't making this up. My dad drove from the south suburbs of Chicago to the north suburbs where I was. He pulls up. He said, oh, Dad, it's so good to see you. Help me get my stuff out of here. We got to get out of here. And Dad walks in.
To this house.
To this house, and he says, Jesus Christ, we're going to get arrested. I'm so sorry. happened.
Well, but at that point, didn't he connect the dots?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was just being a loving father saying...
He helped me leave. He let me come home.
Which has to be a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think he wanted to get me out of that environment. He didn't want to have to visit me in prison. I never get to tell these stories, but please come back. And you know what? If for some reason you aren't able to come back, call us. We'll figure out some way we can get you a copy of... we'll have video copies and CD copies of these programs, and maybe you'll be nice and send a contribution, cover the shipping or something, or maybe not. I want to get it to you anyway because I want you to know God loves you. He's got to love you because He's equal opportunity. And if He could have loved me, and if He could have changed me, because you didn't know I was such a scoundrel. You have no idea what I was like. I sit here respectable, Ph.D., Reverend, Doctor. I'm a sugar. We both know that. The point is, I'm not who I was. And I don't know what you're dealing with, but you don't have to be who you were or who you are. Either. God is a redeeming God. He loves you. He loves me. Please stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of A Pair of Jews Beat a Royal Flush. If you'd like to receive the next episode in this series, request it by name, Part 12 of A Pair of Jews Beat a Royal Flush. We'll send it to you for a contribution of just $10. Give us a call at 1-800-688-3422 or look us up online at crosstalk.org.
And I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you.
If you're like me, you've probably heard that scripture since you were young. But one might ask, what does this really look like? Well, there are two ways that you can bless Israel in a very tangible way. One of those ways is to go. The other way is to plant trees. You see, Israel is a modern miracle in the desert of the Middle East because believers like us plant trees. So I'll ask, do you want to bless Israel? For every $25 contribution that you make, we're going to plant a tree in your name, and we'll send you a certificate that you can hang on the wall and display proudly that you're standing with and you have blessed Israel. So give me a call at 1-800-688-3422 or visit us on the web at crosstalk.org. Let us know how many trees you want to plant. And if you're able, join us on our next tour of the Holy Land and plant one with your own hands.
Shalom and welcome to CrossTalk. My name is Randy Weiss. We're here today with Jeffrey D. Miller, and wow, good to have you with us again, man.
Yeah, well, Randy, it's such a blessing for me to be able to sit here and ask you about how you made the tremendous transition from being deep headlong into the worldly ways of drugs and sex and etc., rock and roll music. Not that rock and roll is bad, but the kind you were in was bad. And you, it's a blessing for me to help your viewers see what God did in your life. You were just messed up.
You know, I'd like to just say that so no one misunderstands. Yeah, I did bad things, and I hope you don't think that talking about it is celebrating it. Because sometimes I hear people talk about their past, and it's almost a revel in what occurred, a revelry. And I tend not to talk about these things. I don't give my testimony that often, and I don't think I've ever discussed most of these things on our program because people might get the wrong impression. I'm just glad, I'm just grateful, I'm just thankful that God was willing to change me and to forgive me and to give me a new life.
Yeah. Well, you know now that was bad and you wish it never would have happened.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. You can't be happy about killing a baby. You have to live with that the rest of your life. You can't be happy about having influenced people to do horrifying things. You can't be happy about being a contributor to the death and destruction of other people.
And right, and you were, and it's past tense, which is the good part. Yeah. So you had a situation where things got so bad in this communal type apartment you were living with in Sin with a bunch of other hippies, you finally called your dad and said, help.
I finally figured out, not that I was bad, but that the circumstance in which I was living was bad. And it was going to lead to worse things. I was going to end up in prison. And I called my dad, and I asked him, can I come home? And he let me come home. My parents.
How old were you then?
I would have been about maybe 18, I'm thinking. No, 19. I was a young guy.
Yeah. So
I was old enough to know better, but...
In a very short time, you did an awful lot wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So Dad says, come on home. Mom and Dad welcome you home. What kind of relationship did you have when you got home?
Oh, they were glad that I was home. They told me they didn't want me doing drugs in their house. And I told them, I said, okay, I will respect that and not do that in your house. I didn't want to be dishonest.
Right. But you were still so sold out to the ways of the world that you were saying, well, I'll just shift the way I do it. I'm not stopping it.
Oh, no, there was no intention of stopping, none whatsoever. And I didn't see any need to. I mean, you got to understand that when you're with a bunch of people who who accept this behavior and celebrate this behavior, illicit sex is only bad to people who know it's wrong. To people who think it's not wrong, it's good.
It's why not? Sure.
Yeah. So if drug use changes your attitude about normalcy, and you don't like the status quo, you want something to be different, but you're not really capable of changing the world, you can at least think about it differently.
You change yourself.
Yeah, in your head.
Yeah.
And that's what much of the 60s was about, was in our heads.
Escape, really.
Yeah.
Big escape. So you're now home. Your lifestyle's only partially changed by default, because when you're in the house, you have to be that way. Yeah. Now, what's going on, meanwhile, with your future love life, let's say it that way?
Well, okay. The circumstance was that at one point I had run off with an Italian girl that I'd fallen in love with, and that's where and my parents were completely opposed to it. And we were living together, and that's when there was an abortion. Later, I met another Italian girl, and we ran off. I wanted her to come live with me. She wouldn't come live with me.
Good sign.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way. And I finally said, well, what are we going to have to do for you to come live with me? And she said, we're going to have to get married. And I said, like, that was so foreign, the whole idea. And so I took a bunch of drugs, and I said, okay. We had the TV on, and there was a preacher on TV. And some humanist knucklehead, I don't know who the guy was any longer, it was a long time ago, and I said, I'll tell you what, we'll get married if he'll marry us. And she said, okay. So we got to the end of the program, and it was an address up in Minnesota. So she said, Minnesota. I said, yeah. Okay, I said, I guess take a little more and we'll go to Minnesota. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
We get to where we were going, and it must have been 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I find this guy's home.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, bizarre? Yeah. Way bizarre.
Way bizarre.
Knocking on the door, hey, anybody home? And the neighbor comes out. What are you doing? I said, well, I need to see Reverend whatever his name is. He says, why? I said, well, he's going to marry us. I said, does he know that? I said, no. I said, well, he's not here. He's in Chicago.
Where you just came from.
Yeah. So it was like really disappointing, you know. Or maybe I'm off the hook. What's happening?
Yeah.
You know? So we turn around, and lo and behold, a blizzard hits. I mean, a Minnesota blizzard. and my little Volkswagen is in a ditch, up to the doors. Wow. This little Italian girl, she's just like, what am I going to tell my daddy? What am I going to tell my daddy? And I said, well, I'll get you home. I'll get you home. You know, so we finally got back, and we get to the door
Of
her house. And I'd only met her parents one time. I was afraid of parents.
oh, I can understand that.
Yeah. You know, people ask me, did the church reach out to you? What did the church say to you? I said, the only thing I ever heard from the church was stay away from my daughter. That's all I ever heard from Christians. But it's the next day now, and she knows her parents are terrified.
Yeah. Where is she?
Yeah. And her father comes to the door, and he's so happy to see her. And he was much older. She was the baby, very old when she was born. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. Where have you been? To me. And I said, we went to get married. Because we did. We went to get married.
Statement, right?
And he said, oh, you've made me a happy man. And we moved in with her parents.
Well, did you actually get married?
Well, not yet.
Yes, and we're not reveling in this.
There is nothing
It's just
funny about
stupid.
this.
It's so stupid, it's funny.
There is nothing funny about this. We moved in. He thought we got married. And Adrian, my wife, it was late 1972 when we ran off. You know, I mean, when we were in love. January 73, we're living with her parents. And she says, Randy, we've got to get married.
They're going to find out.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I know. And so I had just come out with a record, and we decided we were going to kind of go on a honeymoon record promotion tour, and we were going to get married.
Great combo.
Yeah. And so that's what we did.
And were you still actively using drugs?
Yes. In fact, we started life. I had $600 in the bank from the last drug deal I had made. And that's all the money I had. And I had no employment other than playing rock and roll music and being a small-time little peddler, you know. But I had $600, and that purchased our honeymoon.
So you set out, and you did get married.
Yes, Yankton, South Dakota. We tried to get married in the capital city where I was doing a radio interview, but they wouldn't accept our blood test, or they wouldn't accept something that was away. I don't remember what it was, but we ended up going to Yankton, South Dakota, and the hometown of Lawrence Welk, I might add, and we got married by a judge, not a justice of the peace, a judge. At the end of the I do's, he held out his hand. I thought he wanted to shake hands, and he said $10. You know?
Well, you had 10. You had that much.
Yeah, I did.
When you came back from this tour, back to her parents' house again?
Well, no, everything changed on this trip. She left me. She left me in Colorado.
Shortly after you were married?
Yes. And I made her get back in it. She jumped out of the car. She said, "I'm gonna have my brother come pick me up." You know. And I said, "No, you get back in this car." And but a real interesting thing had occurred. I had carried some books with me when we left town. I had gone back to college in 1972. I was studying ancient Greek and Hebrew civilizations, mythology, and music appreciation. And I was interested in weird stuff. And I had bought some weird books with weird titles. And one of them was The Late Great Planet Earth. And I happened to pick that book up when we got to Phoenix, Arizona. As we were coming into Phoenix, I saw a tent out in the desert. It was like a revival tent. I didn't know that's what it was, but it had a big sign on it, Christ is the answer. And I just so clearly remember going past that tent and looking at it and saying to my wife, what's the question?
So what's the question?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get it at all. And we get into Phoenix. We're staying at a Jewish friend's apartment, and I picked up the book and I just started reading it. And I'm guessing we're probably going to have to take a break. And I need to tell you what happened when I picked up that book. We'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of A Pair of Jews Beat a Royal Flush. If you'd like to receive the next episode in this series, request it by name, Part 12 of A Pair of Jews Beat a Royal Flush. We'll send it to you for a contribution of just $10. Give us a call at 1-800-688-3422 or look us up online at CrossTalk.org.
And I will bless those that bless you, and curse those that curse you.
If you're like me, you've probably heard that scripture since you were young. But one might ask, what does this really look like? Well, there are two ways that you can bless Israel in a very tangible way. One of those ways is to go. The other way is to plant trees. You see, Israel is a modern miracle in the desert of the Middle East because believers like us plant trees. So I'll ask, do you want to bless Israel? For every $25 contribution that you make, we're going to plant a tree in your name, and we'll send you a certificate that you can hang on the wall and display proudly that you're standing with and you have blessed Israel. So give me a call at 1-800-688-3422 or visit us on the web at crosstalk.org. Let us know how many trees you want to plant. And if you're able, join us on our next tour of the Holy Land and plant one with your own hands.
Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back to Crosstalk. And I was just going to explain about this book. This book I picked up, and I'm minding my own business. I'm not bothering anybody. My Jewish friend, we're staying at his apartment. He's out, and I'm just reading this book, and it's talking about
The Late Great Planet Earth.
The Late Great Planet Earth, written by Hal Lindsey. I had no idea what it was about. I just thought it was about the end of the world. And I was interested in the end of the world.
Weird stuff, right?
Weird stuff. And all of a sudden, this book's talking about, there's Isaiah is quoted and Jeremiah. I don't know Isaiah or Jeremiah's work, but I know their name. Mm-hmm. They're credible.
Yes.
Those are Jewish guys.
Yeah, they're real Jewish prophets.
I'm Jewish, they're Jewish. It's probably okay to hear what they're saying. And at one point, it says, all have sinned, come short of the glory of God.
First time you ever heard that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe somebody had said it, I don't know, but it certainly never rang a bell. Mm-hmm. I read it in that book, and it was like, wow, all have sinned? Mm-hmm. That means me too? Mm-hmm. I genuinely did not see myself as a sinner. Right. I knew at Yom Kippur, I go to temple, I fast, I pray, and it's cool. Mm-hmm. I used to play, I was a musician and played bars and clubs, coffee houses, concerts, wherever. I would also get invited into coffee houses at churches. Now, I'm in there doing the gospel of sex, drugs, and revolution, but, it brings people into the congregation, brings the kids to church, keeps them in the house of God. The people running these places are just completely clueless as to what's taking place. They don't know what is being fed to their children. I was being fed to their children. And hey, play the Hitchhiker song!
Yeah.
But people would come to me once in a while. I heard somebody say something like, if you died today, would you go to heaven? Periodically, somebody would say that, and I would just say, well, sure, I'm Jewish.
Yeah. Right, which is the Jewish mindset.
Yeah.
Just curious here, you're down near this tent revival meeting in Arizona, you're reading this book, you're married, Adrian's faith is...
She's Catholic.
So
nominal Catholic.
Nominal Catholic. So yeah. She's fine too. As far as she's concerned, she's fine.
Yeah. When you're not as bad as Charles Manson, you're not so bad. And
what a benchmark. Okay. Well, so now you're reading the book, and you're reading spiritual truth probably from the perspective of Messiah, For the first time in your life.
Absolutely, for the first time in my life. But it only took all of sin and come short of the glory of God for me to know that that included me. And I didn't know what it meant, except I was one of those. Mm-hmm. And it didn't dawn on me, was it because you killed a baby? Was it because you were an adulterer? Was it because you were a drug user? Was it because you dishonored your parents? Was it because you didn't fast enough? Was it because you didn't go to shul? None of those things were irrelevant. It was just simply, that's my makeup. I was one of those who had fallen short. And then the next thing it says, the wages of sin is death. I didn't know that either. I didn't know there was a cost to sin. I thought there's a cost to getting caught.
Yeah.
But there's not a cost to sin. This said the wages of sin is death. Sin, die, that's payment. I became scared. I was guilty for the first time in my life. Guilty before God, not guilty from my mother, not guilty from a rabbi, not guilty from a norm that some man set, not guilty because a friend didn't like what I did. I was guilty before God.
You did believe there was a God.
I absolutely believed there was a God. I do thank you for joining us here at CrossTalk. Jeffrey, thank you for being with us. And would you be able to come back for another episode?
I'm here.
All right. You too, please come back. Till next time, God bless. Shalom.
Because he loves me, I will live for him. Because he loves me, because he loves me, because he loves me, I will live for him. Because he loves me, I will follow him. Because he loves me, I will follow him. Because he loves me.